In this video, I will try to show you how to hike the Annapurna circuit of Nepal. What is the Annapurna circuit? The Annapurna circuit is a hike which leads you around the Annapurna, one of the highest mountains of the world. The trek is located in Nepal. Most people start in Bezahar, and then you walk all the way across the valley, climbing higher and higher until you reach the famous Torang La Pass at 5,460 meters at altitude. It's a very beautiful, quite easy and cheap hike to do. It brings you to one of the most beautiful places on earth, and I can only recommend it to almost everyone. For most people it takes around 2 weeks. You have to hike between 120 and 200 kilometers, and you really get a feeling of the Nepali culture. Where to start the Annapurna circuit? Most people, and so did I, start at Bezahar, the official starting point. But between Bezahar and Manang, a village 80 kilometers further deep into the mountains and a lot higher, they build a road. Not like a really beautiful road, but a road. So you can also take a jeep all the way up there and decide where you want to start. You can start at Manang, you can start at Bule Bule or other villages in between Manang and the official starting point, Bezahar. Manang is really high and Bezahar is quite low. I think you start at 760 meters above sea level. So that way you can really easily acclimatize. But if you're short on time, maybe you can start one village later like Bule Bule. But some people go as far as Chame or even starting at Pisang or Manang. But this is a risk because, of course, you miss most of the trek and you miss a lot of beautiful spots, but you also start really high. So you need to be acclimatized very well in order to successfully make it in good health. So I would recommend, if you have the time, start as soon as possible, maybe Bezahar. And just hike the whole bit because it's very beautiful and it really helps you to get acclimatized well. But you also have other options. Because it's a circuit, you hike in a circle around the Annapurna. So you can either start on this side or you can start at the other side where most people finish. I would recommend starting in Bezahar because then you slowly climb all the way up until you reach the highest point of 5,460 meters. You can also start on the other side, but then the climb to the pass is way steeper. Acclimatizing well from that side would be a lot more difficult. So I would recommend starting at Bezahar, and almost everybody I met started at Bezahar because it's just a gentle climb all the way. But how to get to the starting point of the hike? So most people start at Bezahar, but you can't really just fly into Bezahar. So you have to fly to Kathmandu, the capital and the biggest city of Nepal. From Kathmandu you can take a bus to Pokhara, which takes the whole day, or you can take a plane to Pokhara, which is a bit more expensive but way faster. Both the bus and the plane are relatively dangerous because accidents happen all the time, unfortunately. Another option is from Kathmandu you can go straight with a jeep or a bus, I think, to Bandipur and then to Bezahar, the starting point of the trek. What I did, I took the bus to Pokhara, relaxed for a day, and then from there took a bus to Bezahar. And there's a tourist bus park in Pokhara, very close to the airport and very close to the Pewa lake, the biggest lake. And from there it takes around 5 hours to get to the city of Bezahar. From Bezahar you can then take the jeep or start walking and enjoy the trek. So, a summary of the hike. The hike itself, the whole Annapurna circuit, takes between 2 and 3 weeks. But most people don't finish the whole Annapurna circuit because you start at Bezahar, hike all the way through the valley and climb higher until you reach Manang, cross the Torang La Pass, and then you reach Muktinath and later Jomson. And this is where a lot of the original road, the path, have been replaced by a road with traffic. So a lot of people take the bus from Muktinath and end it there. But the official trek you make all the way across, more south until you reach Nayapur. So the official trek is from Bezi Sahar, all the way across, around Annapurna range, over crossing the Torang La, back down to Naya Pool. But from the people I met, no one did the whole hike. Almost everybody stopped straight after the pass, the Muktinat, or walked a little bit further in Jomson. From Muktinat and Jomson you can take a bus, jeep, or from Jomson even a plane back to Pokhara. So I will take you through the whole hike. Let's say you start at Bezi Sahar. From Bezi Sahar you start following this beautiful valley. Visit Bule Bule, go further. Jakat is also a very famous place to start. You keep walking in between this valley, and as you can see from here on, you're really surrounded by big beautiful mountains. You keep on following the valley, but you are close to the Annapurna 2, the Annapurna 3, and walk further. Visit Gyaru and walk further until you reach Manang. And Manang is the last big town. Not really big, but more or less big. Then you walk further, take it right, and then you can eventually climb the Torang La Pass. After this pass, which is 5,460 meters high, you can start descending really fast until you reach Muktinat, and from there on, most people take the bus or a jeep and walk further to Jomson. I'm not really sure about the whole route from here, since I took a bus from here to Pokhara as well. But there is another option, because from here you can also make a detour to Gorpani and Gandruk and other places, because you have the famous Poon Hill and Annapurna base camp here as well. This is different. The Poon Hill officially is part of the Annapurna circuit. So for some people this might be a very nice way to end it, because from Poon Hill you have the most beautiful views of the mountains. You can also decide to take a jeep a little bit from Jomson and then hikes the last part to Poon Hill, Gorpani, and maybe even do Machu Picchu base camp or Annapurna base camp from there. So you can really decide for yourself how long you want to make the trek. It can be a 6-day trek, it can be a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week trek. You can decide on your own. But it's important to acclimatize well. That's why most people do it counterclockwise and not clockwise, because you have the high pass at the end and not at the beginning. You can make it longer by either visiting the Annapurna base camp and the Machu Picchu base camp, or climb the Mardi Himal, but that's not really part of the whole Annapurna circuit. But it's important to know that you can decide for yourself if you want to make it longer or shorter by starting earlier or later and finishing earlier or later. Almost no one does the whole Annapurna circuit because there's a bigger road, but some people who did it still recommend it if you want to really challenge yourself. And then the food and sleeping accommodations. That's the most beautiful thing about this trek, in my opinion. It's very well suited for beginners because it's a tea house trek, something very common in Nepal. And this tea house trek leads you through all those villages with small hotels, you could say. Very basic, no central heating, sometimes electricity, sometimes Wi-Fi. It does get better every year. But it's basic, but it's luxury at the same time as well. Because it allows you to sleep there, eat there, so you don't have to carry a tent, you don't have to carry all your food for the whole week. You can just buy it at the spot. And it's also quite cheap. There are no ATMs along the way, so take enough cash, but I think if you take $30 in Nepali rupee, you will be fine. You will have plenty if you don't spend it, of course. So for sleeping, all those tea houses are there. And for food, you can just eat at your tea house. That's a common thing as well. If you eat there, you can get a discount on your tea house, or sometimes even get it for free. At least that was how it was like when I was there 4 years ago. Of course, the food and the sleeping gets more expensive the higher you are sleeping. Because it's more remote, it costs more to get there for them as well. Should you bring a guide or a porter? Of course, this is for everybody, this is a different choice. If you take a guide or a porter, you're really supporting the local economy, which is always a good thing, of course. If you take a porter, you will carry your bags, and this will make your hike a little bit more easy. So if you're more a beginner, or you just want to enjoy the scenery and don't want to carry all your stuff, maybe take a porter for sure. A guide brings safety, he can tell you about the surroundings, he can lead you the right way and helps you with all the accommodations and the places to sleep and stuff. But of course, for everybody this is different because you're supporting the local economy as well. I didn't really like the idea of a guide because it would feel less like an adventure for me, and I really like to plan my own hike and hike my own hike. And the road and the path is not technical at all, it's quite easy, and also you won't get lost for sure. But of course, a guide can be beneficial and might add something for you, but it's not really a necessity. The biggest danger of the Annapurna circuit would be the weather circumstances and the altitude. So those are two things a guide could make more safe for you, but of course you can also check the weather for sure for yourself. And if you are acclimatized well, you won't be needing this expertise, hopefully. So I didn't take a guide and I didn't take a porter. Porters are nice if you want to make your hike a little bit more easy and support the local economy, and the guide is nice if you don't feel experienced enough for this hike and like to go on a bit on the safer side, and of course support the local economy again. But I think the hike is quite safe and easy in general. It's not technical at all. Which brings us to the next point. Is this hike for you? The hike itself is quite easy, although it will take a lot of energy to hike the whole way. You can take your time, you can acclimatize easily and well, and it's not technical at all. Also, for the backpackers, Nepal is quite a cheap country. For 30 USD you will be fine every day. But of course, you don't need to expect a lot of luxury because it's basic trekking. But the tea houses and the food really felt like a luxury for me. So I think it's almost for everybody. If you are fine with being basic, like to hike in the most beautiful scenery of the world, even if you don't have a lot of money, you can hike the trek. It's not that technical, but you will go to a high altitude, so take care and really listen to your body if it feels okay. So also do your study in how to acclimatize well, because I'm not suited to give medical advice at all. Above 3,000 meters, we wouldn't sleep 500 meters higher than the night before, and really try to assess our own symptoms. At the Annapurna circuit, we were already acclimatized because we did the Annapurna base camp before, but that won't go for everybody, of course. Most people, they take an acclimatization day in Manang, because after Manang you really start to climb fast. So is it for you? It's easy, it's not technical, it can be tough if you're not in the right physical condition. It's not luxurious at all, it's quite basic, but there are tea houses everywhere and you don't have to be that experienced. Although, I would not advise you to do this hike on your own. Always make sure there's someone else with you, because of course accidents can always happen. So find somebody else, hike with them, or go with a group, a guide or a porter if you can't find anybody. When to hike the Annapurna circuit? Well, in Nepal you have basically two hiking seasons. October and November, which are the most popular months to hike, which brings the best weather but also the biggest crowds. Or March and April. That's when I went back in 2019, and the coming March in 2023 I will go again. In this time you still have great weather, but you have a higher chances of snow if you're a little bit higher, which can lead to problems along the way. If there's too much snow, you can't hike the hike. But mostly in the end of March and beginning of April you will be fine. So less people then, and you will have snow. I liked the fact that there was snow as well. It really gave a really Himalayan vibes. I mean, you're in the highest mountains of the world. You want to have a little bit of snow. I thought, at least. The two biggest options are October, November, which is the high season, March, April, which is the shoulder season, and both are completely fine. I wouldn't recommend going in the summer, July, August, because then the monsoon will hit and you will have rain and fog and bad visibility. Something you don't want high in the mountains. Whatever season you're going, make sure before you cross the Thoringla Pass, in Manang you can see the weather forecast. Check the weather forecast before you go, because the whole year you can have snowstorms at higher altitude. Which gear should you bring or wear at the Annapurna circuit? Well, the most important thing is layers. Take layers so you can strip down or dress up if it's colder or warmer. When I was there in March, April, the nights were really cold, but as soon as the sun started shining, it got really nice and warm. but make sure to bring warm clothing, at least a down jacket and a rain jacket, to be sure you don't get too cold if something happens. You don't have to bring food, you don't have to bring a tent, but I would advise to bring a sleeping bag. They have blankets in the tea houses, but having your own sleeping bag is very nice, and then you're sure you will be warm at night, and you can still use the blankets from the tea houses. You can either buy this sleeping bag in Kathmandu, bring it home, bring it from your home country, or rent it in Kathmandu or Pokhara, and you pay a little bit for every day you use it, and it's still quite cheap. I think I paid 70 cents a day to rent a really warm sleeping bag, so that was very doable. Also, what to bring is money. Bring cash, because there won't be an ATM on the whole trek. Alright, my general advice and some tips. The Annapurna circuit is a circuit around the Annapurna, but you can also go to the Annapurna base camp, which is quite close to the Annapurna mountain itself. We did this before our trek because from Manang there was still too much snow back then. So we did the Annapurna base camp before and then started our Annapurna circuit. The Annapurna base camp is located in between the beautiful mountains, and you can have a very nice views of the Machu Picchu mountain, which is quite a famous mountain. So if you're in the area and you feel like I still need to hike a little bit more, you can consider doing the Annapurna base camp as well, either before if there's too much snow, or if you want to acclimatize on another way, or after. If you go from Johnson, you can take a shortcut to the Tadepani, Gorepani and the Poon Hill, and from there do the base camp trek before you go to Pokhara. Acclimatization. I told it before, how I acclimatized was after 3000 meters altitude, we generally wouldn't sleep more than 500 meters higher than we slept the night before, and listen to our bodies. My next tip is how to navigate. You can either navigate with AllTrails or Maps.me. Those are the two very reliable sources. I made my own AllTrails map, and you can just follow the exact route I took, and it leads you all the way across the Annapurna circuit. Or use Maps.me, download it offline, and those maps are really accurate as well. Of course, you can also bring like a real book with the route, which contains a lot of information, which I used as well. But having something live is very nice as well. So AllTrails, I will link that down in the description, or Maps.me has a really nice route, and all the smaller paths are on there as well. Another big tip for everybody is sleep at Gyaru. You can choose for Lower Pisang or Upper Pisang, and near Upper Pisang you will find the town of Gyaru. And from Gyaru you will have the most beautiful views of the Annapurna 2, Annapurna 3, Gangapurna, and all the bigger mountains. So that's really something I enjoyed a lot. It's a big climb from the valley, but once you're up there, the views are crazy spectacular. So really try to go to Gyaru as well. It's a big climb, but it's worth it for sure. Gyaru is almost at the same altitude as Manang, so the day after will be quite an easy day as well. And then permits. You need 2 permits. This is the first one, the TIMS. I will show you what it looks like from the inside. This was me. You need those 2 permits, and you can get them in Pokhara or Kathmandu. They will cost around 40 euros to get both of them. And if you exit the area, you need another one. So I did Annapurna base camp before, went to Pokhara, and then started the circuit, and I got 2 of those. And then the road building, a big thing. All the way from Bezahar to Manang, they build a road, and from Moktinat down, there's road building as well. For me, from Bezahar to Manang, the road didn't bother me at all. It's not like a highway, it was more like a gravel way, and there wasn't that much traffic at all. But I can imagine if you're looking for pristine mountains with no intervention of people, then it might be a bit of a turn off. For me, it didn't bother me that much, because the path you could follow was sometimes across from the river from where the road was. But yeah, it's there. I would still really recommend going here, because the views were beautiful all the way. And then, like I said before, don't do this trek on your own. Make sure there's someone with you, especially at the higher parts, where you can get like altitude sickness, which is a really dangerous thing. You can get lost, not a big chance, but you can still get lost. There can be avalanches or other dangers, so make sure you're not alone out there. especially not when you're not that experienced. So you don't have to be that experienced for the whole trekking, but you want to have somebody with you at all times. I think this concludes the whole Annapurna Circuit trek. I told you a lot of the things I know. It's just a beautiful trek. It's one of my favorite treks of the world for sure. It's cheap, you can climb high, the views are just extremely beautiful. You can easily combine it with going to Chitwan or Kathmandu and see a lot of wildlife and culture. It's definitely a beautiful place and a very special one, because the Nepali culture is just beautiful. So I would definitely recommend, if you have the chance, fly to Kathmandu, take a bus to Pokhara, go to Besahar and hike this trek. For me, so far, I can't really compare it to the Everest Base Camp, which is a very famous trek as well. But if you're interested in that, in exactly 2.5 weeks, I will fly to Nepal again and visit the Everest Base Camp with the 3 Passes trek and the Gokyo Lakes. So if you're interested, follow along and make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps, and I hope you have a wonderful time. It's a beautiful country. For me, it's one of my favorite countries of the world.